Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into today's video. We're going to look at the weather for the next 8 to 10 days in this video. There's signs of some high pressure building in next week, so it does look as though we're going to have some drier, warmer weather coming along for a few days later next week. Have a look at it in more detail though in a moment. Just talk about the advertising. There'll usually be a video ad over in my web videos at gavswebbiz.com. Please post video ads. You'll be supporting gavswebbiz.com by doing that. So the first thing we want to look at is the 500 millibar height anomaly charts from the ECMWF and the GFS models. 500 millibars, 80,000 feet is an important area in the atmosphere because that's where we get high pressure and low pressure developing. It's as the jet stream runs above those areas of high pressure and low pressure, moves them around, but really gives us weather. It's more complicated than that, that's the general gist of the idea. So where we've got the orange and red colours, that's where we've got above average heights. Where we've got the blue colours, that's where we've got below average heights. That's temperature really at 18,000 feet, and then we extrapolate those areas into high pressure for the orange and red and low pressure for the blue colours. So what we're looking at here is a big positive anomaly setting up just to the west of the country, and it does look as though we are going to start to see some high pressure coming along next week. Now this is a bit at odds with the forecast I gave yesterday, the August month head forecast that predicted that it's going to be a cooler and wetter than average month. Of course, that is based on anomalies for 10-day and 30-day period respectively, and that doesn't preclude a few days of high pressure, so we could easily get a few days of warm, dry, sunny weather and the month still end up cooler than average and wetter than average. But this is quite a nice positive anomaly actually setting up to the west of the country. This will probably take a few days to break down actually, so already I'm not all that sure about my month head forecast given yesterday, but we'll keep an eye on it and see how it develops. But in any case, this is the ECMWF height anomaly for 8 to 10 days time, and yes, we have got that large positive area to the west. It's just extending in across the British Isles and just moving to the east, perhaps slightly towards Scandinavia. This is a particularly hot position for the high pressure to be in, but if it was to extend any further east, it could get quite warm from that actually. Having a look at the GFS, and it's a very similar situation. The positive anomaly is perhaps centred a bit further to the north with this. So there is the chance that we could bring in some weaker pressure to the south, maybe setting off some showers. Again, the high pressure is more to the west and to the northwest of the country and to the east. So again, it's not really a desperately hot position for the high pressure to be in. For that to happen, it needs to be over us and to the east. But nevertheless, it's quite a nice chart really, and will at least give us a few days of drier, sunnier and slightly warmer weather next week. So having a look at the GFS ensembles, and we can see that for the moment we are below average. These are for the upper atmosphere, by the way. These are the upper air temperature ensembles, and we can see at the moment we are below average and will continue to be below average for the next few days. It's very unsettled at the moment. We've got low pressure over us, giving it showers, longer spells of rain, and that's quite a cool area of low pressure. But notice from around the 7th of August, those lines do begin to push up above the red line. The red line is average for the time of year. The lines begin to push up above that red line, so it is turning warmer as we go into next week. As I say, not a heat wave probably, but certainly warm, with temperatures perhaps into the mid to upper 20s if we're lucky in the south. And then they start to dip back down again once we get through towards the middle of the period. And for precipitation spots, well, these are the precipitation spots associated with the showers that we've got coming up over the next few days, associated with this cool low pressure system. Then everything goes drier for a few days between around the 8th and the 10th, and then from the 11th we start to get those precipitation spots coming back, coinciding with the dip in the lines here. So that's probably indicating some showers starting to come up from the south later on next week. That's the ensemble for London, by the way. This is the ensemble for Manchester, and we can see it's a very similar situation. There's the quite cool weather at the moment, actually near normal up in Manchester, and the precipitation spikes associated with those showers. The lines do pick up then as we get through to next week, perhaps not to the same extent as they do in London for the London ensemble, and you'll probably expect that because it's always warmer in the south in these situations. But notice that for Manchester, the precipitation spikes never really go away, even in this drier weather with the positive height anomaly area, the high pressure area coming in next week. Still we keep some precipitation spikes going. So northern parts of the country, question mark for the north, I'm afraid. It may never really settle down. The more settled weather coming along next week maybe for the south. Temperature anomalies for the next week, the 3rd of August to the 10th of August. Well, we're around average or maybe a bit below average here across the British Isles and much of France, below average as well. The real heat is to the east. This is probably being skewed a bit by the cool weather that we've got at the moment and going to keep for the next few days, associated with the cool low pressure that we've got over us at the moment. So yes, it's probably skewing, man. Once we get through to next week, we may start to get a little bit of red coming into these southern areas, indicating temperatures a little bit above average, but certainly no sign on this chart of any particularly hot weather coming up in the next week. And for precipitation anomalies for the next week, the 3rd to the 10th of August, we can see that the precipitation is going to be around average for England and Wales, and a little bit above average for these northern parts of the country. White is average, greens and blues above average. Again, this is probably being skewed by the very showery weather that we've got today and will keep for the next few days. So for the generic charts from the models, we can see that this is the situation on Tuesday. We've got the low pressure finally moving away to the east. That's going to be giving us all the showers over the weekend. There really will be some torrential downpours around this weekend, by the way, so keep a lookout for that. This next area of low pressure is the trigger for the change in the weather coming along next week. This low pressure, instead of moving in across the country, is going to start to become cut off down to the south. There it goes on the chart on Wednesday. For Wednesday the 8th, that low pressure is becoming cut off in the Atlantic, and the effect of that is to ridge high pressure to the east of it, start to build high pressure over France, and we've got this area of high pressure to the north of that cut-off low as well. So by the time we get through to Thursday, those two areas of high pressure are forming one basic area of high pressure around the British Isles. Now the problem with this, what you can't see with this, it looks quite nice, but the problem here is I think we will have a lot of cloud associated with this build of pressure. There may even be weather fronts stuck underneath it as well, so before we get any real improvement, we're going to have to squeeze out those weather fronts with this high pressure, kill them off, and then get the sun breaking through the clouds. So that's going to take a few days, but eventually by the time we get through to Friday the 10th of August, we've got this nice area of high pressure beginning to set up around the British Isles, and again there's the cut-off low that's the trigger for all of this down to the southwest of the country, off the coast of Iberia actually. Now once we get through to 10 days time, this is Monday the 13th of August, and of course this is the day of the closing ceremony for the Olympics. I'm sure the Olympics organisers will be watching the weather closely to see what's happening for the closing ceremony. But you can see that pressure is starting to weaken now to the north of the country. We saw this on the height anomaly chart, of course, the high pressure and more centred to the north, and that allows weak pressure to develop to the south, maybe pushing up a thundery low. And as you saw in the ensembles, the temperatures will be starting to cool down by that point as well. ECMWF for a week's time. This is the chart for a week's time, Friday the 10th of August. We've got the high pressure more or less over the country, perhaps centred very slight to the west. As I say, this isn't a particularly hot position for the high pressure to be in, but it's still quite nice. Temperatures will be, if this comes off, up to around the mid-20s across England and Wales, and it'll be basically dry with some sunny spells once we get rid of all that cloud and kill off any weather fronts stuck underneath that high pressure. For Monday the 13th of August, we've got this low pressure starting to push up from the south. The high pressure ridge is beginning to weaken away, and this low pressure is showing signs of coming up from the south, but it's a long way off and quite speculative. And finally for the GEM, the Canadian, again for a week's time, Friday the 10th, we've got that ridge over the country. As I say, could well be weather fronts stuck underneath this with a lot of clouds, so it will take a few days to show a real improvement, I think, next week, but eventually we should get some improving weather, particularly for England and Wales in particular. But once we get through to Monday the 13th, pressure is becoming quite weak. The heights are pulling out to the west and up to the northeast, and this low pressure is showing signs of starting to push up from the south. So this doesn't look like being a particularly prolonged or extended area of high pressure, although of course you never can tell when there's a pattern change going on how long the pattern change is going to last for. But anyway, it does look as though next week we are going to get a few days of drier weather. It will take a while to improve because I think we're going to have weather fronts and weather fronts stuck underneath that high pressure and a lot of cloud as well, but eventually things should improve and we should see some drier, warmer, sunny weather at least for a few days later next week before maybe it all starts to break down as we get through towards the middle of the month. That's it for now. I'll be doing the week ahead forecast tomorrow, so come back for that, but that's all for now. Thanks for watching.